You are not required to feel like you want it before you're allowed to find out. And responsive desire is not a lesser version of desire. It's not a broken version of a spontaneous desire. It's just a different, completely normal and typical way of being sexual. Welcome to the Be Well Baby podcast. I'm Dr. Emily Spaeth, founder of Be Well Baby in Portland, Oregon, and the Beyond Birth Blueprint, an online community where we support families through pregnancy, birth, postpartum, and especially life with a baby. This podcast exists because I believe families deserve better than what I am seeing in my work as a physical therapist, lactation consultant, and childbirth educator. Just a quick loving note before we dive in. Everything you hear on this podcast is for educational purposes only. It's not medical advice. Every body and every baby and every season is different, and you deserve support that is personalized to you. Let's get started. I'm so glad you're here. Hey friend, today it is just you and me, and we are talking about something that I think is very important and not a lot of people talk about. When I was pregnant with my first baby, I was terrified of having sex after the baby came. I was so scared. I took my partner aside and I talked to him about how scared I was. I talked to my friends about how scared I was, although I was kind of the first one of us to have a baby. So they were like, yeah, that seems scary. I talked to my providers about how scared I was, and everyone I talked to seemed to respond with this sort of like, yeah, but it'll be fine. And I thought, how will it be fine? How will we find the time to connect like that again? How will I ever want to be touched again? I just could not see the reality being good. And I almost felt like I was sacrificing my intimate connection with my partner by having this baby. I was also really worried about breastfeeding and how that would feel because of the fact that that is also an area of the body that is used in intimate times. So today I'm going to tell you something that you probably needed to hear. When you are cleared at 6 weeks, your body doesn't necessarily get that memo. And you might be missing closeness with your partner. You might not even be able to locate an ounce of desire anywhere in your body. And maybe you started to wonder if there's something wrong with you. And I am here to tell you there's nothing wrong with you. And I'm going to talk to you about why. And we are going to talk about strategies to help with the journey back into sexuality, the journey back into yourself. Maybe you are a person who has actually never orgasmed by yourself before. That's huge. So there's a lot of doors that having a baby can open for you in terms of even being able to feel pleasure in your own body. So I wanted to start with hormones. What is happening with your hormones? I think the physiology is the most relieving part of this because there is science, there's actual stuff going on a chemical level in your body that is causing some of the symptoms that you might be having. Nobody tells us this at the 6-week checkup, but here is what's actually going on in your body. After you have your baby and your placenta comes out, it's the placenta detaching and coming out of your body that is the trigger for estrogen and progesterone to fall off a literal cliff. If you can see my hands on the YouTubes, you are going up and up and up and up and up in your estrogen and progesterone throughout your entire pregnancy. And then as soon as that placenta comes out, bam, it falls all the way straight line down. Straight line. That is the hormonal shift that triggers your milk to come in. Amazing. But it's also what can be a big trigger of the baby blues or even shivers and night sweats and crazy hormonal things happening in your body. Prolactin is the hormone that drives milk supply, actively suppresses both estrogen and testosterone. And those two hormones, yes, female-bodied humans have testosterone. Those two hormones are most tied to desire and arousal. Let me say it again. Prolactin. So if you are chest feeding, the hormones that drive milk supply actively suppress the two hormones that are tied to desire and arousal. That means that if you are feeding your baby with your body, you are likely walking around with the lowest levels of those hormones that you've had since before puberty. That is low. Let's talk about testosterone for a second, because I think it gets a bad male rap, and it's actually not. Testosterone drives desire and genital sensitivity in every body, every single body. So when testosterone drops, the loss of interest that you're feeling is not just in your head. It's not just because you had a baby. It's chemical in your body. Then there's oxytocin, which is the bonding hormone and also the hormone tied to arousal and orgasm. And it might feel just like a little bit weird to put bonding and attachment, like the oxytocin that gives you those nice strong contractions for your labor and your baby being born. And it also is the hormone that allows you to bond with your baby right after they show up in the world. And you're like, who is this creature? I love them so much. That hormone also is tied to arousal and orgasm. So important to understand that. So right now, your oxytocin is being channeled and poured into your baby. Every feed, every time you catch the smell of the top of their head, every time you hold them, oxytocin is doing its job. So if it feels like there's nothing left over for your partner, I want you to hear this really, really clearly. The bucket is not empty. It's just pointing somewhere else. I don't know if that's a good analogy. Buckets can't really point. It's just that there is this focus of oxytocin towards your baby, and it is hard to feel in the same breath that bonding and attachment that you feel so deeply for your baby in a sexual way towards your partner. It's a challenge, and it's something that you sort of have to change in your brain. So this is your physiology working exactly the way it's designed to. It's actually not a problem with your relationship. It's not a problem with you. It's not a problem at all. It's just physiology. And if partners could understand this, boy, would postpartum sex be more pleasant. Okay, so let's talk about brains. Hormones do explain a lot of what's going on, but they don't explain everything. And this next piece is one of my favorite parts to teach because it tends to make people exhale for the first time. Are you ready? Back in the 1990s, two researchers at the Kinsey Institute, Eric Janssen and John Bancroft, of course, men, proposed something called the dual control model of sexual response. The idea is relatively simple. Your nervous system, which, if you can't remember, we have a whole episode on what the nervous system is and what it does. The nervous system runs on a pairing of an accelerator and a set of brakes. The accelerator responds to erotic cues. So touch, seeing something that turns you on, thinking about something that turns you on, the context of where you are. So feeding your baby, not so sexy sometimes. But whatever it is that turns you on, the brakes respond to every good reason not to be turned on right now. For example, stress, sleep deprivation, feeling watched, feeling touched out, feeling overwhelmed. All of those are breaks. If any of you have read the book Come As You Are, it is one of my faves. Emily Nagoski, not just because her name is Emily, but she brought this model to a much wider audience when she first published her book, Come As You Are. Her big reframe, which I really want you to sit with, is this. Low desire is actually not an accelerator problem. It's a brakes problem. I want to break it down for you so that you can really understand what I'm saying. So low desire isn't that there isn't enough stuff turning you on. It's that all of the things in your life are putting the brakes on. And postpartum life is essentially someone standing on your brake pedal with both feet and crying in the middle of the night. So here is another part of this model that I really love. It's not really gendered in any sense of the word. Everyone's accelerator and brakes are calibrated differently. We're all unique, beautiful cars, I guess. So if you and your partner feel like you're on completely different pages right now, like your partner thinks you are a goddess because you just birthed a human, which is so magical and incredible, does not matter how that baby came out of your body. You grew a human and then you birthed that human. It's amazing. So your partner thinks you're incredible and they don't care that your body changed at all. And then you're over here thinking, I don't even recognize her. Who is she? Who is this body? And what has she done with my body? It so makes sense that you are on different pages right now because your two nervous systems with already different settings at baseline are trying to find each other in this season that is pressing on you in all kinds of ways. One last thing while we're here, because I think it changes everything. Desire isn't actually a biological drive the way that hunger or sleep are. You don't have to feel desire spontaneously to be healthy or whole or normal. And that makes things complicated when you are in a situation where you don't have desire, but you still love your partner and you want to be intimate with them. I just wanted to pop in here and say that if the Be Well Baby podcast has helped you in any way, if our team has helped you in any way, the people who find us because they heard about us from a friend, because they heard about us from a midwife or a doula or their pediatrician or their OB. And we value those connections so much. And we know that the only way for people to find excellent healthcare is for people to talk about it. So if you have a minute, please leave the podcast a review. It will help people find this podcast. If we band together and shout this from the rooftops, then we will be able to change healthcare. Thanks. This next part might be a little bit counterintuitive, but I want you to hear me. In 2000, a wonderful Canadian researcher named Dr. Rosemary Basson, I don't know. She's Canadian, so it's probably French. Dr. Rosemary Basson published a model that challenged the way that we'd been thinking about sexual response since the 60s. The old model was really linear. So it was desire came first, then arousal, then orgasm, in that order every time. And honestly, I think that's what we think. I think that we think we have to feel desire first, and then we can feel aroused. And I have to say, that's not usually the case for me or for a lot of the women I work with. So Basson's model is circular instead, and it makes so much more sense in my brain. Her big finding was for a lot of people, especially in long-term relationships, desire doesn't come first. Willingness comes first. Closeness comes first. And desire shows up after arousal has already started, not before. Ooh, I just gave myself chills. I know this already, and it's still surprising to me when I say it out loud it's so validating because you sit there thinking, gosh, I don't want my partner. I don't have any desire for my partner. There must be something wrong. But that's actually not true. And that's a very old model of how we look at sexual desire and sexual activity and sexual arousal. Willingness comes first. So if you have a willingness to try, to be close, to maybe be naked next to each other, desire can show up after arousal has already started. And it's okay if arousal starts mechanically rather than organically, if you know what I mean. Yeah, it just makes me want to take a big sigh of relief because it means that you are not required to feel like you want it before you're allowed to find out. And responsive desire is not a lesser version of desire. It's not a broken version of a spontaneous desire. It's just a different, completely normal and typical way of being sexual. And for a lot of postpartum bodies, it's just where you are right now, and that's okay. This also connects to something called arousal non-concordance. This is the idea that your physical response and your felt desire don't always match up. So if you're feeling a little bit dry or your body isn't responding the way that it used to, that's not proof that your mind isn't willing. Your body and your desire are allowed to be out of sync. It's not a dysfunction. It's just where you're at right now. And that non-concordance makes a lot of sense hormonally because when you are lacking estrogen, your body doesn't have as much fluids. I had a postpartum client who I'm working with who was told that her cells looked like that of someone in well into menopause was what she was told. That's not cool, doc. But it's true because the cells on the inside of your vaginal wall are drier than they would otherwise be, especially when you're lactating and feeding a baby from your body. Breastfeeding, pumping, whatever that looks like for you, anytime that there is milk being removed from your body, you're going to have lower estrogen and your tissues will be drier. Okay, now we are going to talk about something that I hear about in my sessions all the time. And I think it doesn't really get said out loud very much. But if you have had a baby's body on your body for an entire day, you've been nursing, holding them, carrying them, soothing them, they've been sleeping on you, your need for intimate touch may already be feeling pretty complete and maybe completely met by the end of the day. This is called touch saturation, or a lot of people call it being touched out. It means that by the time your partner reaches for you at 9 p.m., after you've been literally touched for the entire day, there's genuinely nothing left. And it's not because you don't love them. It's because your body has already spent its whole budget on someone else who needed touch from you more urgently. There's this other feeling that I kind of mentioned earlier, that idea of wanting to want it, missing the closeness, missing who you used to be with your partner, maybe missing the spontaneity, and yet not being able to not schedule sex because you have a small human asking for your attention all the time. And there's maybe a few times where you and your partner are in the same place at any given point of the week. And even with the knowledge that desire doesn't have to come first, somehow not being able to find desire anywhere in your body when you go looking for it, that gap can be scary. But it is not a sign that something is wrong with you or your relationship. It's just the distance between what your heart and your body and your soul desires and your bandwidth. That gap will close slowly on its own timeline. And it has to be because you've given it room. Okay, so if you are pregnant and listening to this, now is the time to talk to your partner about this. Maybe even have them listen to this episode. But it's so important to be able to tell them exactly what you're afraid of. Are you afraid that it's going to hurt and then you're not going to say anything because you don't want to be a downer? And that's going to feel icky. Are you afraid that you can never orgasm again? Are you afraid that you will look different or feel different or not ever feel sexy because you now have a baby and you're a parent and that's not the sexiest thing? Anything that you're thinking of, talk to your partner about it now. Because, and even if now is postpartum for you, now is the right time to talk to them because it allows them to get a window into what you are experiencing. And also, it lets them know that you are thinking about this wonderful activity that you likely did to create this baby. And you're thinking about it in a really intentional way. And it allows them to take a step back and think about it too. Because most of the time, the whole thing is theoretical until there is an actual baby. So I want to end somewhere that is practical, because I am never going to leave you with just why and what. In our Sex After Birth workshops, I share a bunch of different practices that you can do, a bunch of different ideas for feeling close to your partner. But one of the simplest tools that I share with almost everyone that I work with for pelvic floor is finding a way to have a secret language with your partner. So even if it's just a quick hand squeeze that you both know means something, and you know what I'm talking about. I had one client who did a little flick on her partner's shoulder just as she was walking by, if she was like, I'm down to try tonight. And the other thing that has to be true in terms of the communication is that, especially with the first time after you've had your baby, trying to do anything penetrative, it doesn't matter if you are a type of couple who had sex to make your baby or didn't have sex to make your baby. The truth is that any amount of penetration postpartum is going to require some time and definitely some lube. And if you are someone who is experiencing any amount of vaginal dryness, talk to your provider about getting an estrogen cream. Estradiol is great. Anything that will allow a little bit more circulation in your vaginal tissues can be really, really wonderful. And here's the truth behind all of this. If you are listening to this episode, then you're curious about what this all means, and maybe you've been having a little moment of struggle. Intimacy after birth is not about finding your way back to anything. You are not going to find your way back to how things used to be. It's about building something new, and it can be even better than it was before. And part of the reason for that is creativity and communication. So if you take one thing from this episode, let it be this. Nothing is wrong with you. Your hormones are doing exactly what they're supposed to do. Your brakes are allowed to be pressed right now. Your desire is allowed to show up a little bit late or responsively, or not at all today. And you and your partner are allowed to build something new together instead of chasing something old. If you want any more support with this, if you want to talk about your specific situation, we run a free workshop called Sex After Birth, and I will drop the details in the show notes. The next one is coming up on August 20th, 2026, and I am trying to run these regularly. So hopefully if you are listening to this in 2027 or 2028, there are still Sex After Birth workshops running. Thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you for being open to this conversation. It is such an important topic. So important. In our Sex After Baby episode with Crystal Gard, we talk about how sex should be like brushing your teeth. This is just part of what we do. It's self-care. It's maintenance of our bodies and our relationships as well. So if we could talk about this more, if we could have these conversations in a way that feels safe and supported more often, then what could happen? Maybe we would have deeper, more meaningful relationships with ourselves. Maybe we would have better relationships, better closeness with our partners. Maybe divorce rates would go down. I don't know. Either way, if this episode was a breath of fresh air that you needed today, send it to a friend who needs to hear it too. And remember, we are getting close to the end of season 1. 50 episodes worth of amazing conversations. So go back, take a listen to all the conversations that we've had and send us your suggestions for topics for next year. I love spending time with you. I'm grateful for you, and I'll see you next week. Audio and music production by the amazing Peter Gary, with Lillian Ewert managing all scheduling and operations of Be Well Baby, including this podcast. Thank you both for making this happen. New episodes drop every Wednesday, and I'd love for you to follow us on Instagram at BeWellBabyPDX or visit BeWellBaby.org to book a time to chat with us. And if this episode helped you, please send it to someone who's pregnant, postpartum, or someone in your life who wants to support you better. No one should have to do this alone. Welcome to Be Well Baby. You're in the right place.